So one thing that's really fun about working at Adaptive Path is we're a culture that's really driven by ideas. We talk nonstop about the ideas that are interesting to us, and we actually spend a lot of time trying to figure out ways to share those ideas out with a larger group of people. So sometimes people wonder how that works. Like, how do you actually make time for interesting ideas in the course of day-to-day business? And informally, I think we do it in lots of little messy ways, but recently as a company, we've actually been trying to put some sort of structure around that process so we can do it in a more predictable and repeatable way. And we actually put together a little diagram that shows kind of how we'd like to do this in a more formal way going forward, and it also exposes, I think, a lot of what we've been doing informally for a long time. So we want to share this little process with you. So on some level, having good ideas is just about being open to good ideas and sort of observant about what's going on in the world. So there's this sort of initial activity where we're sort of looking for sparks all the time, and we share them in lots of ways, and we have a distribution list by email where we're constantly emailing back and forth about just interesting stuff that we've observed. We have a lot of interesting internal meetings where we will bring in outside speakers, or we'll even just share with each other the ideas that are going on in our minds. And those things, you could consider them sort of regular activities where ideas get sort of passed around. And in the passing around of those ideas, often one colleague will have a really interesting idea that then I get excited about because they help me to see what's interesting about it, and then I'll talk about it, and then that spreads to somebody else. And so the spark essentially grows into something that is a closer approximation of a flame or a bit of fire. And when that happens, that's when there's a really interesting opportunity for us to start to formalize a message about that and to share it out with other people. So whether that's speaking at a conference or writing an article or sending out something in our newsletter, essentially we take those little sparks and turn them into something bigger. And that doesn't happen just on its own. We actually do a lot to support each other in that. We will share little drafts of presentations with each other over lunch. We'll partner up with colleagues and say, hey, I'm thinking about this stuff, what do you think? We'll even actually sometimes bring in outside experts and sort of coaches to help us figure out the best way to share our messages. So it's probably important and wise to acknowledge the significance of coaching and mentoring and matchmaking and just being serious about actually partnering up with people to develop those ideas further, and we certainly do a lot of that at Adaptive Path. And then the last thing I think that's super important for us is to be able to observe what's going on in the world based on those ideas. So sure, you talk a lot, but is it just blah, 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 or do those ideas have resonance for other people? And do they contribute to the larger conversation in a meaningful way and help move it forward? So in small ways, we're sort of always watching out for like who mentioned AP or you know, how that sort of idea that we're also interested in is taking shape in the world. But in a more formalized process, we think we can actually really look for that and find ways to actually measure a sort of baseline in terms of buzz and impact and ways that the methods that we talk about and the processes that we use are actually being sort of taking life out in the world. So all things that we've been doing in a messy way, but we wanted to put them together into a structure that really made sense and that could be sort of followed in a more formal process. So we turned to one of our favorite models, which is basically just a little swim lane diagram that shows how these things can really sort of work together in a three-part process that is easy to remember, easy to get on board with, and yet reflective of all the complexity that goes into this sort of adaptive path culture of ideas. And this is it. It's the three-phase spark, fire, impact model, although actually we've just changed this last word to roar because we really like to overabuse our metaphors at Adaptive Path. Spark, fire, roar. That's how ideas take fire.